Hey everyone, it's Vanessa. I realize that my mic on this episode is absolutely horrible. I apologize. I received a new mic from Amazon and it came broken. So, for some reason, my headset's microphone got activated instead of my phone's microphone, and I sound absolutely horrible. But please don't let that hold you back. This episode's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Transcending Humanity. This is episode 5. It's our Trans Joy episode. I'm Vanessa, and I'm joined by Erica and Rylie today. I believe Erica's going to be taking the lead today, so I'm going to hand it on over to her. Or that way. She's that way.
You're that way, and I'm this way.
We're all over the place.
What else sums up trans people than that? All right. Okay.
So true.
So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is trans joy. Right. I think our community is pretty familiar with this topic. Although I read something pretty interesting today where some people think of it as glimmers, which is sort of the opposite of a trigger. So those things that sort of spark a glimmer into you.
I like that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I like it too. One of my friends who's non-binary likes that term a lot.
It's a great term.
So when I suggested this topic, I actually set out to find a definition of trans joy, and I couldn't find one, which was kind of surprising. But what I found was a lot of people's collection of here's my experience of trans joy, which at the end was like, wow, we don't really agree, but it also felt like really representative of the being transgender. We all approach it from different places. We have different goals. Different things cause us joy, right? So in a sense, it kind of is cool that there's not a definition. So the way I kind of want to tackle this, at least at the top, is for us each to kind of define what trans joy means to each of us. So I'll go first. So trans joy, my joy, glimmer, right, has its root in unequivocally being my authentic self and finding my style and feeling like I'm really rocking it. In just the general effervescent joy that just comes off of me so much that never used to, right? I find it in others like Vanessa or hearing from Rylie or some of our other hosts, people that I know, hearing their experiences and seeing them being their fullest self really brings me joy as well, that representation.
Yeah.
I find it in how my body's changing and continuing to change, how my mindset has changed a lot. Getting a miss, a Mrs. or a ma'am, I was at the coffee shop at work today, and this lady made my coffee for me. She's done it a couple times, and she just is always so great at using my name or using pronouns. Another coworker referred to me. I asked a question, and she answered it, "Yes, ma'am." And those aren't things that I thought would spark joy in me, but they really do. They really bring that up for me. It's really has its root in the fact that I no longer live in depression or anxiety the way I used to. I feel whole, and it's like the best feeling in the world. And I was thinking today in the run up to this, if I had to paint a picture, I love word pictures. To me, it feels like I'm sitting in the sun on the beach, somewhere in the Caribbean, preferably, and having a really great cocktail and just watching the sunset. To me, that's encapsulates my joy. It feels warm. It feels enveloping. It feels tingly. It's all the best things.
Yeah.
And so I had this, and I have this experience in what I wear, in hugging people that are part of our community, people that are allies, just meeting other trans and non-binary people and hearing
It's so
their
exciting
news.
to do that.
Yeah. So that's like my version. And I would love to hear yours, Vanessa or Rylie, whoever would like to go first.
Let's go, Rylie, next. And also, Rylie, can you? I completely forgot to have you introduce yourself.
Oh, no. Let's do that.
Start with you. Yeah, I'm Rylie. I'm 29 years old. I've been transitioning. For the summer will be actually 11 years since I started testosterone. It has been about nine years. This December will be 10 years since my top surgery.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was very fortunate enough to begin my transition the summer after I graduated high school.
Nice.
So I was able to basically start college as a male presenting student, though I had very interesting experiences, especially freshman year with my transition. We'll save that for other times, though. but tying into though trans joy. I mean, obviously, starting my transition though and everything uh, was obviously a big source of joy for me. Not just starting to meet other people and things like that in college that
Mhm.
also identified within the community, but like being able to um, just like Erica said, just starting to live as my authentic self. Um, so things like that were definitely a big source of um, trans joy for me, especially early on. And as I've been transitioning, just how that joy is even transitioned as
Mhm.
well as I essentially lived stealth for probably about 4 or 5 years even. Um,
Mhm.
and the definition of what my trans joy was even during that time was kind of a bit different than what it was early in my transition.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I would, as we go a little bit deeper, I would love to dive into how what joy feels like to you has grown with you. So we can take that now if you want, or we can go on to Vanessa's
No,
version of
let's
trans
go
joy.
with Vanessa.
Okay, it is up to me now. So, trans joy, trans joy, trans joy, trans joy for me. I have been out for a lot shorter amount of time than both of you. I came out in October of 2021 and didn't start my HRT. Well, it was just a month later. I started in November of 2021. So the whole concept of trans joy is still fairly new to me, and I'm learning. Being neurodivergent, my brain is just always all over the place, and I have
Mhm.
noticed. I actually find it a good thing. I do add this to trans joy that for so many years I was masking everything. I've
Mhm. Mhm.
self-diagnosed myself as autistic, but I masked that for my entire life. And once I started estrogen and how it how the hormones that your brain is craving, like for Erica and I is estrogen, for Rylie it's testosterone, that your brain has always wanted your
Mhm.
entire life. Once that is there, the clarity. Riley, I'm
Mhm.
I'm imagining it's kind of the same when you start testosterone too, and everything switches over. You have a
Yes.
clarity in that your brain is finally taking in this stuff that it's wanted, but your body never produced it. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I've been able to unmask, and I am really being able to find out who I am. And it's brought some difficulties, yes, because all of a sudden I'm being thrown all these emotions and stuff at me that I'd never had before in my life. Like I have panic attacks now all
Mhm.
the time. I never used to have
Mhm.
them,
Mhm.
but I'm glad that I do. Um, so that's kind of a strange thing to have in trans joy, but I have a feeling that a number of other people have that same kind of feeling in that their true self that for in my case I kept buried for 40 years, the true self is finally starting to come out. And
Mhm.
now that I have now that my body is pretty much pure estrogen, I had an orchiectomy late last year, so I don't produce any testosterone. Um,
Mhm.
it's just everything just clicks now. But
Mhm.
having emotions is so foreign to me, especially since growing up in a family where emotions were bad. They're very bad. We didn't talk about emotions, and now I have them,
Mhm.
and it's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time to have all these feelings because I honestly don't know how to process them all yet. So I kind of shut down, but
Mhm.
I love that I'm able to finally feel this stuff. It was like I was Borg forever, like Seven of Nine, and then pulled out of the continuum. No, not the continuum. The collective. Pulled out of the
The
collective,
collective, yes.
and
Mhm.
yeah. And
Star
so
Trek
here I am.
Voyager.
What's that?
Is that Star Trek Voyager
It was all the
or
Star Treks pretty much that the
all
Borg
the
were
Star
in,
Trek?
but
Yeah.
Seven of
Borg.
Nine was Voyager, yeah,
Yeah.
and Picard. But so yeah, that's the joy for me. It's I societally I live in a area that trans people are not appreciated. So I haven't had a whole
Mhm.
lot of that societally, except for when I went to Canada. And holy shit, Canada! Everywhere I went, I was still even. But that was last July, so I barely even had boobs or anything yet. But people didn't care. Like I was just another face in the crowd there, where around here, everyone just stops and stares at me. And there, no one cared. You know, I go in the bathroom, they didn't give a shit because they know I was just in there to pee. And that was the most, it was such a release. It was such a wonderful, amazing thing. So that's my joy.
I mean, that's great. I want to dive into a couple of those things and just sort of affirm. I think experiencing your feelings, your thought processes in a new way is certainly something to have joy about, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure Riley probably has his version of that, right? Like for me, I was always relatively an emotional. I'm a feeling person. I'm very empathetic. I'm an empath, right? So, but it was always hard for me to dive into the deeper things and really kind of get through those. And I don't experience new feelings, but the volume has increased and the ease of
Volume.
which of like talking from those things and talking about those things it just kind of blew me away. I kind of knew that that would be coming, but I didn't think it would feel the way it did. And so feeling like I could move my feelings and talk from them instead of talk about them finally felt like something had been fixed, right?
Yeah.
And for me, when I started estrogen, like within 2 weeks, my whole mindset started to change. And for the way I experienced it was,
fast.
it felt like there was less like static. It felt, like when you old school TV, when you turn on a channel that's not receiving, it's just that sound
Yeah.
that went away so fast, and it changed everything for me. And I'm still, even quite a good little bit ways in at this point, still experiencing like, oh, I'm really having a lot of feeling around that. On the one hand, it's like, oh shit, and the other hand, it's like, that's really cool, right? And
You
so, but
nailed it.
yeah, and so I definitely think that even things like that, it doesn't have to be like I have this cool outfit I wore, or someone said ma'am or sir, or I feel comfortable in my city. It can just be how I feel about myself drives so much joy. So I'm curious, Riley, if you have like, the trans man version of some of those experiences, frankly.
So it's kind of funny how you guys were talking about like, the expansion of like your emotions in a way. Because like for me, actually, when I started testosterone, it went almost like inverted, where
Yeah.
like my level, like I explained it to my partner one time that I was like, like I used to feel like this, and like I still feel the all those same emotions. It's kind of more muted, and it's kind of just more like this is the range of it now.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
like but, like, it was still at the same time, though, like, weirdly affirming because
Hmm.
I wasn't, like, just becoming overly emotional over, like, watching Lion King or something, you know?
Yeah, that's me now, and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it.
Same.
So I can watch something and it's like, okay, I know some of this is supposed to be sad, but, like, it's weirdly affirming that I'm not crying over something right now.
I
Um,
will cry like that at this point, and that's so wild.
oh, yes.
That dichotomy is amazing. It's so wonderful to have a trans man on the show now because it's mainly been
Yeah.
people influenced by estrogen on the show so far, really. And so having your perspective is amazing because it's what you're describing is what Erica and I spent years, having. It's almost like an emotional tunnel vision, I suppose. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the right way of
Yeah.
putting it. So it's like everything's more focused. And with
Yeah.
estrogen, everything's more broad. And I don't think one is better than the other, but they're very different. And it's very
Mhm.
wild to be able to live a life, to be able to feel both of those different perspectives. So that's the trans experience right there.
Yep.
Yeah. It feels right. It feels native to me now instead of something that used to control me.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say, Riley?
Um, I don't quite remember what I was gonna say, to be honest.
No, no worries.
Sorry.
Okay,
Oh, no,
so let's
you're
go
fine.
on. Let's go on to another question. Like, so I want to dive into a little bit more specific. So, what brings that for you the most? Like your joy, your version of joy. What really drives that home for you? That's reliable and you can kind of see it coming. What are your favorite things?
Um, I mean, obviously, for me, like the having the consistent, like gender affirming, like for me, sir and Mister and things like that. Um, Obviously, having a pretty well established beard helped some of that.
Yes, nice beard, by the way.
It is
Thank you.
beautiful.
Very handsome.
A German Irish heritage, so I'm a pretty hairy. Um, but so this is actually kind of like I've thought about it, and I have like a very love-hate relationship with it. But my receding hairline, um, I used to have the thickest hair, guy. Yeah, you know,
Mhm.
um, and while I am not the most thrilled about losing hair, it is also a very gender affirming thing because I mean it is a hereditary thing, and like I mean
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
a
It is. It's a very, typical experience for men. I have my own version of that, right? And it's weird. I made my peace with that a long time ago, and going through transition and starting estrogen. Some has come back, and if it all came back, that'd be great. But I'm kind of like, this is me,
Hmm.
and it
exactly.
feels better. So happy that something that many people are like, oh man, still kind of feels affirming to you.
Exactly. Like I am plus I know myself. I could have easily started doing, any of those hair treatment things, but I'm just like weirdly paranoid,
Hmm.
like transferring stuff to my partner because I'm not like
Yeah.
I'm so paranoid about that. I'm like, you know what? I'll bald. It's fine.
Hmm. Well, and let's be honest. You know, hair is very gendered, but it does not make up that gender's experience unless you choose to allow it, right? And if people, women and men, go bald. Women and men have full thick heads of hair.
And besides,
Exactly.
bald guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about you, Vanessa? What are
That's
yeah, I know you was talking about kind of being a little early, but do you have some reliable things that you can point to that kind of bring up that sense of joy for you?
Okay, this is going to sound really strange, but it's something that just popped up the other day. Is I all of a sudden have body positivity that I've never had before. Um,
Hmm.
and like for years, like I hated my body. I didn't care about it. I just let it go. I gained so much weight, and I mean now I gained weight again too, but that's because I like food. But I have started taking my own nudes, and
Mm-hmm.
holy shit, is it affirming? Like unlike anything I could possibly have imagined, and it's just I I'm having trouble putting it into words. It's not something that I ever thought that I
Hmm.
would ever do because I've always just been ashamed of what I have. But now, like I take these pictures, and I'm like, holy shit, this. I'm turning into what this is turning into what I want it to be, and it's
Hmm.
absolutely
Hmm.
amazing. So that may sound like a strange affirming thing that sparks the joy, but that's it's very very poignant. It's very I
Hmm.
I'm having so much fun with it, and I'm having fun sharing it to a limited audience as well. So um,
Yeah,
probably not
spicy
the answer
pigs,
you're
man.
expecting, but boobies.
Well, and that kind of references back to how we started, right? There's not a universal decision. I mean, everybody loves being called by their name and love
Yeah,
being gendered correctly for whatever that looks like. You love feeling good in your clothes, right? But there's the world of joy goes well beyond that. Like
yeah.
for me, I when I got a yes ma'am in response to a question I asked my colleague who has only known me as Erica and who frankly I adore, and she always genders me correctly. It still felt really good to get that for some indescribable reason. It wasn't a stranger, it's someone I know and who knows me, but today I just really enjoyed that. Right.
It's
Or
so
when
amazing.
yeah, or when some of my cis female friends referred to me, like we have a collection of gals that are supporting someone going through some health stuff, and to be considered part of the ladies supporting this amazing lady is always affirming for me. I feel very
That
welcomed into this space.
yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, totally. But it can be like this blazer or these earrings or having my nails done or just I think the thing that I actually enjoy the most is like it's the weekend. We are probably watching some sort of like Today Show type of thing on the weekend, and like the highs and lows comes on, and I always cry at the high. So like happy tears is a new thing for me, and I love them
Yes.
every single time, and they
Yeah.
come like instantly. And that was 4, and I used to watch my partner and be like, I mean, that's heartwarming, but why the tears? And
Yeah,
now I get it. I totally get it, and I love it so much. But it can just be weird and wild things. It could be feeling like I don't have to be ashamed at wanting to have flowers in my life. I've always loved flowers and always felt like as a man, like, oh, you shouldn't care about flowers so much. I love flowers, so it's just, and it continues. There's things that surprise me all the time.
you
But
nailed it.
yes, and when I find them, I take a moment and I just try to be in that moment with that thing because I remember what it was like before. I certainly had joy in my life before, but it didn't always feel like this. I have joy with my partner. I've always had that, but outside of some narrow joy with my kids, but outside of some narrow areas, I didn't feel joy. So when it happens now, like I eat that thing up.
Definitely. That actually gives me a question for you, Rylie. Because I definitely have had the same experience, like having groups of cis women be very, very, very supportive of me, which is amazing. They love giving us makeup too. But what experience have you had with cis men? Do you see that as well?
So I feel like for the most part, it's kind of hit or miss. Some guys are just kind of like whatever, and they just kind of go about their day and like, okay, you're just a dude, just whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's like people who want to linger on it, and honestly, it's like the opposite of trans joy when people give me this phrase of like, "Oh my god, I could have never guessed," and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's like that's not really the compliment you think it is.
Yeah.
Because there's not really one way to look trans. While I'm not visibly queer like I used to be. Yeah, that don't please don't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, don't never tell someone, "Oh, you don't look trans."
Like,
Yeah. It's a tough one to hear.
Yeah.
I also kind of always bristle at, oh, you're so brave. I'm like, no, I'm just being myself.
exactly. It's
I'm
like
just being
I
myself.
see what you mean by it, but like I guess I'm courageous in the aspect of okay, I could have kept living in the closet, but like I'm sorry I chose not to continue to be depressed about this. Like I'm gonna do what I can to not be depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, we're not monolithic. People might love hearing that, right? For me, I'm always like, I mean, yes, I am brave, but that's not the thing
You
I want
are.
you to take away from. I want you to take away from the fact that I am happy as fuck.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So much yes.
Although I gotta say, I feel you, Rylie. I think the experience that you're having in terms of men feels kind of very similar to me. Obviously, I was never the actual guy in the group, despite what people thought. But there were men that I hit it off with, and men that just like you're just like, and I feel like women do a better job of like gathering people in than men do. So I think I've always sort of wondered if trans men sometimes feel suddenly kind of alone and alienated in that way because men just don't gather the way that women do.
Yeah.
I'll say it's kind of more just in the way of like you have to try and navigate not having lived as a male growing up. So my lived experiences of as a female growing up, um, just the social dynamic is just different in
Yeah.
male versus female. So like even to this day, I still gravitate towards more female centric groups, mostly because I tend to hit it off better with women.
Yeah.
That makes
Well,
total
I
sense.
appreciate that. I like you. I'd love to hang out with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I hope that we can all do someday. Is just all get together and just have a big,
Yes, a big
it'd be
conference.
amazing. Yeah. We could have a transcending
Okay.
conference, transcending humanity conference.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper with that one, right? So I mentioned to me that trans joy, that sort of glimmer, I really love that term, feels different than like the other joy that I've experienced. Like, I take a lot of joy in my relationship with my partner, in my adult kids, and my son who's a Boy Scout and who plays soccer. And I was a Boy Scout and I played soccer all the way through university. And I take a lot of joy in sharing those experiences with him and help bringing him along the way. And they feel nice and they feel rich, but not in the same way that glimmer, that trans joy does to me. It hits me quite differently, um, and it feels delightful in a different way. So I'm curious if you guys have some differing experiences, or is it trans joy just feel like all joy to you?
Well, so I'll say that for me, it's kind of especially because I've been transitioning for so long now. It has kind of evolved over time. So like early on, I'd say like a lot of my trans joy was just around the gender euphoria and like
Mhm.
the changes that were happening and being able to document those changes and see, oh, how much more my voice has dropped and things like that, those
Yeah.
little minute details. But after a certain point, especially a lot for trans men, especially when we've hit like full beard, you're not really changing much in your voice anymore. Like it really
Mhm.
really slows down after a while. For me it was probably around the 4-year mark is when I finally was like, okay, it's not changing too much. It's just the hair on the top that's still thinning. Um, and it just kept thinning. Um,
Mhm.
and so like, I was just it was a lot of gender euphoria at the very beginning. And, as it's kind of changed as I, continued to um just keep transitioning in general, it's I'd say there is kind of a difference in the way that the joy feels for trans joy versus regular joy, especially now for me, because like I kind of think of, oh, I did an awesome job at work with this display or something, and like I'm getting a
Mhm.
lot of feedback, and it's great because like that's like, hey, personal pride in my work, sort of like joy. But then there's like, you know, something cool happens in my transition, and like especially now where it's like, oh, or it's just I'm very prideful about um a specific moment or something, and it's just kind of how that, and it's more in relation to how like my transition is for me, or just a moment of like solidarity with the LGBT community, Q plus community, and things like that. Um, those kind of moments also spark trans joy in a way, though,
Mhm.
and it feels different. It does.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. I definitely feel that there's a separation for me between trans joy and regular joy. They do overlap as well, but being a parent of now 3-year-old, I have a whole separate joy from that life as I do on the trans side, because I started off, people saw me as my kid's dad, and now I've evolved to be his their mother. But just my life, just watching my kids just grow and learn, and just all those things, that is so incredibly joyful to me on a level completely outside of being trans. And when it starts to get closer together, I would say is more in my professional life, because I have started using the fact that I'm trans in my professional life to kind of intermingle things somewhat that way. But I would say my greatest joy now just comes from being a parent, and it makes me kind of wonder what kind of person I would have been if my kid hadn't been born when I came out. If I come out younger, it's kind of wild to think of that, but it's I never thought that I would enjoy being a parent. I never wanted to be a parent, but now having more of a motherly instinct over my kid it's just so cool.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's that's how my joys kind of cross and don't cross.
No, that sounds quite lovely. Um, so I wanna take it in a slightly different direction. Um, Trans joy has led to a lot of riches in my life, but it's also, I think, given me it comes from a sense of my own agency as well, right? Um, and I know, obviously, being in the United States, on the planet at this time as trans is not very popular, um, but still feeling like I finally have a sense of control in my life, right? Um, being trans and thriving and finding joy has brought me a new sense of agency that I don't feel like I had before. And it's awakened this voice inside, which is one of those things that led me here, right? In my day job, I manage data. I'm a product manager. In my gay job at work, I'm a lead of the LGBTQ or one of the leads of the LGBTQ organization at a very large company. And that's something that wouldn't happen before, even though I identified as queer and non-binary before. Um, and so that sense has given me this real desire to work in people's lives, to show up at places like this, to make people's lives at work better, to mentor, to show up for people. Um, and I know this isn't something I really prepped you both for, but do you either of you at this point in your transition starting to feel, and I'm considering Rylie further along than both of us, maybe has more track record with this, but how does that sense of agency feel for you today, and how is that tied to your thriving and your joy?
For me, mine is kind of along the same lines as yours, Erica. Like before, in the before times, I didn't really have passions about anything, and now I have this community, and I am fierily. I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about it, to the point where that's this why this podcast exists, because it had just been brought up kind of almost in passing on posts on LinkedIn. I'm like, let's do it, and because our community, we're at risk, we're being attacked, and we have to stand up for ourselves. And having this outlet and being able to just bring hope to people. Like I've received messages from people that listen to the show, and it's so very rewarding to read those things. And like at first, I had a kind of a notion like, oh, we only have like so many downloads of the show right now. And I was talking to one of the hosts of another podcast about that, who started the same time as ours, Trans Spotting. I was talking to Marcia there, and she said that she's not really that worried about the download numbers. Her concern is if her show has helped one person, then she's done the right thing. And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. You nailed it. And that's what I feel about Transcending Humanity is I know that we are here. It brings so much targeted trans joy knowing that we are bringing a message of hope for the community, hope for allies, educating people. Hopefully, maybe some people will listen to this and change their mind about us. Just to hear, hey, we're just people just trying to live our lives and pee. But yeah, that's it for me.
Pee.
Yeah, pee. We always have to pee. So, yeah, I agree with you completely on that. Is finding this just this whole world that I did not know existed until now, and now it's just so absolutely beautiful.
No, and I agree with you both on that. So like before I began my transition and everything, I definitely struggled a lot with a lot of depression and just a lot of just anxiety and other issues that just kind of prevented me from figuring out who I was. And like even with some of the things that I enjoyed, there was still like almost like a veil of like, okay, I enjoy this, but like there's a layer of something missing here. Like once I kind of had the opportunity to begin my transition and figure out who I was, like the urgency behind it was okay, well, if I like this, what else can I find out that I like? Like, oh my goodness, there's so many possibilities. And so like finding community within the people who also felt the same way. And like I ended up so when I began figuring out my gender identity before I went off to college, I had the opportunity to actually go to a monthly trans masculine group meeting at the local LGBT center.
Oh, cool.
And I had to wait till I was 18 to join. So I was like, oh my goodness, I was so excited for it. But once I was able to join, like, oh my goodness, getting to meet 12, 13 other trans men who I could just be like, hey, oh my goodness, I experienced this, and they could 1000% relate with me was
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had found a very similar but a lot smaller group when I went off to college, and it was just a bunch of local people. It wasn't just college students. And like I made some great friendships out of those groups, even, and just meeting
Mm-hmm.
those people that can relate with you, and more than just the, oh, I'm a guy, you're a guy, yeah. I'm like, you 1000% know what it actually feels like to have a period, and you know how much it sucks. Um, you know? So just being able to have that sort of urgency and finding the people that could
Yeah.
relate.
Mhm. I I love both of your answers. From when I was on the outside looking in, knowing who I was, but not really having the courage to step on this path, right? I thought I'd be walking in alone. I mean, I knew my partner was with me, but having one person on your side still isn't very many.
Yeah.
And coming out and coming out at work, I have made so many more friends. And even though I was already part of the queer community, my chosen family has grown tremendously. Most of my close friends are trans and non-binary, and quite a few of them are queer, right? And it's just something that I didn't expect. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode and future episodes is I think most of us step on this path thinking the worst is going to happen, right? We've got to do this thing to stay alive or whatever your rationale is. But along the way, hopefully, and I hear so often you find so many amazing people like the two of you, right? Like all of our other hosts and co-hosts and the people that are in our channels, right? Finding those people um, feels amazing,
It does.
right? And
Yeah.
and and back to something you said, Vanessa, like I for a fact know, because I've been told there are more than a few people that had the courage to finally transition because they saw me out in the public, living my life and having a great time. And
That's how it did for me.
that's why I do this. This is why I
Yeah.
show up. This is why I talk. This is why I'm a lead on the BRG to show people you can do this. And there are good things that happen. Yeah, there's some crap that happens, but there's good stuff too. And it's a worthwhile path.
It
And
is.
I have this sort of affirmation I tell myself all the time when I'm feeling like, "Ugh," which is like being trans and non binary is a supreme act of faith, right? It's the kind of which people just don't really see. We sort of laud those people who take these big leaps of faith in their life, like the Oprahs of the world or whatever
Yeah.
it is. But when you look at the trans community, every single one of us has taken this giant leap, this just absolute truth of self in action. Like put down those self-help books, people. Get to know a trans person. You're going to learn a lot about resiliency,
Yeah.
conquering life, and finding your best self and putting that person forward. Right? Please read self-help books. Don't take that from this conversation. I do, but go meet a trans person. You're
Yeah.
gonna find so much inspiring about that, and that's why it's so wild the way people tend to see us. Because if you look beyond the societal like whatever they think about trans people and look at what we do, how we live our lives, that's something people dream of.
Yeah.
That taking that sort of self-love to the most deepest level is something that people hope that they can do at some point in their lives. Get to know trans people.
Yes.
You're going to find something to be inspired by.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah. That's what finally gave me the courage to come out was there's a Starbucks near me in very red Ohio, and one of the managers is a trans woman, and I'm just like, at first, like I didn't really it didn't comprehend. Then I started clocking her, but I'm like, holy shit, this is
Mhm.
me, and it was just this light bulb moment for me seeing that. So knowing that you, Erica, help people in the same way, and I'm sure Riley does as well.
Mhm.
And it's just amazing. Riley, there's a point that you made that I wanted to touch on too is when you were at those groups of trans mass, it's so fun talking to other trans people, especially trans people
Mm-hmm.
on the same kind of binary as you, just to hear the experiences, like the way that we saw things. Like I know for me and probably for Erica and for Rylie on the flip side, that like, you mean not everybody goes to bed every night wishing that they were a girl or wishing that they were a boy? And but when you talk to other trans people, it's like, okay, we have that in common. There's this like sense of
Yeah.
community that we can all share in. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things about having a few trans men in my life and non-binary people is the things that it's. I love hearing about what Rylie loves being a trans man. Your beard is glorious.
yeah,
You were a very handsome dude.
yes, you
But for
are.
me, it was traumatic to have a beard. I still have to shave, to a certain extent, and like, but your joy in that doesn't hit me the wrong way. It hits me at like, look at that authenticity he is wearing, and it's amazing. I don't have a beard. You look great with a beard.
Yeah,
And that's something I can get behind celebrating, right?
yeah. We have a hottie in a beard
Yeah.
on our show right now. You're kind of cute, but hi,
Sorry to put a
hi.
spotlight on you and embarrass you, but I like to hype people for the things that I see
Yeah,
that are true and authentic about them. So
yeah,
that's what you get with
Well, I
definitely.
appreciate it.
me. Okay. So sort of bringing this thing back in here in the end, right? Because there are certainly a lot of trans and non-binary friends watching this, but I
Hmm.
suspect there's probably some people kind of contemplating this path,
Yeah.
or people new on this path, or people like, wait, trans joy is a thing? Um, do you have any advice to sort of point people in the right direction of where they can start to seek this out?
For me, my advice would be, well, you're already doing the right thing by listening to this show. Find other
Totally.
shows. There's so many YouTube channels. There are so many TikTok creators. Just envelop yourself in all the different personalities, all the different this huge spectrum that is underneath the trans umbrella.
Mhm.
Because right now the three of us, we're fairly on either end of the binary, I would say. But
Mhm.
it's just this absolute beautiful spectrum of people, and just learn about people. You'll hear, I think you'll find that a lot of us have similar kind of like um,
Mhm.
base. What? Why can't Vanessa use your brain? Your brain does not work. Base experiences
Mm.
of like the coming out and stuff like that. But all of us have completely different lived experiences too. And if you watch these people and learn from them, you might find, holy shit, that's me. What this person is going through is exactly how I feel. Or what this person is going through is exactly what my child is telling me that they feel. Or my
Mhm.
sibling, or whatever. And it could help you just open your eyes, which help you become woke. Oh no, woke.
Ooh, I love
So
being woke.
yeah, me too. So,
What about you, Riley?
I mean, I agree with Vanessa for sure because that's honestly like for me, that's how I figured out I was trans to begin with. Was I was perusing YouTube and I would find various LGBTQ videos and I found like Chase Ross and I believe I can't remember his last name, but I know his username is like Jemmy Dodger. Um,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
he's a UK YouTuber, and like there's just all these YouTubers, and back in the day when Tumblr was still an active thing, that was
Right.
um, a whole community that I found through there, and just knowing that there were other people out there and being able to do that is just a good way to start figuring out, okay, well, is this possibly something that
Yeah.
might apply to myself, or as Vanessa or anybody else has said, regarding like the it could apply to my child, this is how they've been expressing it to me, and I can see that these people have been living their lives and they are not you know these monsters or anything that the conservative party has been making us out to be. It's very, just being very open to knowing people that aren't just immediately around you, sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm not scary up here in my floral blazer, okay?
I
Right?
might be a 5'10" balding man with a beard, but I'm a teddy bear.
Mm, bears.
And that's the best thing to be.
Yeah,
That's the best thing for you to be. And it's
yeah.
amazing that you get to be that.
It's so. I have. I just think trans men are just kind of just wonderful, but I don't. It's just me. Like, I'm not
Me
really
too.
attracted to cis men, but I am attracted to trans men because, yeah, y'all are. Yeah,
So
you
yeah,
know,
You got it
you
going
know what I
on.
mean. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
I think from my perspective, I think we're kind of touched on what both of you said already. Like, it was a really daunting task for me at first, like meet people, to be myself out in public and to try to meet other trans people, and it took a while to kind of work out. And there's a whole lot of being trans, especially newly trans, that just takes lots of courage and guts, right? That coming back to that brave thing, because you just have to get out there and do it to a certain extent. But if you can meet people, even if you meet them online, get on a Zoom meeting, show up, talk to people, have these conversations. You're going to start finding that there are people just like you out there, and that your experience isn't isolated, and that you're not alone, even if there's no one right in your local area that you know. My world exploded. It blew up when I started to get to know people, and it just became easier and easier. I mean, that's probably my number one advice. Just go meet people
yes,
in person, online. um it just spreads from there. Take those opportunities, and I think also just be patient. It's going to show up, when you're
yeah,
relatively new on this path. A lot of things are going on. Probably going through the coming out process, which is its own beast, right?
yeah,
Changes may be happening, maybe yourself, right? But just be patient. Like, it
yeah,
takes time for things to start to settle, for you to feel comfortable. And I think for me, when I started to feel comfortable, that's when I could see the joy that I was having, outside of like the really startling things of like I said, no more of that static in the back of my head. Um, so it is just a process of time, but most of my joy is in fellowship, frankly.
yeah,
Go find it.
yeah, yeah. Erica,
If you don't have a friend, you'll be
you
able to
have
find me
us.
on this show. Come talk to me.
You
We're
can reach
here.
out to us. Um,
Hmm. Very
what
approachable.
one thing that you said that I really want to hammer home for everybody? Just listen to what Erica said. You are not alone at all.
Hmm.
There are so many people out there that are here to support you. So if you're ever feeling trapped, if your egg is just cracked and you don't know what to do, don't be afraid to reach out to people. So as Erica said, the community is amazing, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's huge. So reach out,
Mhm.
please.
And one thing I want to add on to that, but that's really quickly, is I hear a lot when I talk to people the first time, "Yo, you seem like you'd be so intimidating, but you're so friendly and warm and welcoming." And that's pretty much true for most trans people. While we're not here to crack your egg for you, we're here
No,
to hear you out and talk to you. And we know what it's like to step on this path. If there's someone you want to reach out to, I mean, if they're like a megastar, like, good luck, right?
yeah,
But if you know some people kind of in your community, reach out, say hello. They probably would love to chat with you. It's
yeah.
not as You're more scared of them saying no than the fact that they probably are just going to say yes.
That's why I'm here, and now this show exists. Is I reached
Yeah.
out to on LinkedIn. I started just connecting with the bigger names in the trans community on LinkedIn, and now here we are.
Mhm.
And creating our own little following. So yeah,
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to draw us to a close here a little bit. So, um, we're going to be coming back to this topic regularly, hopefully once a month.
yeah,
And there's a lot of good reasons for that. It's a lot of fun to talk about trans joy, but it's important to talk about the good things, right? We're all well read on the things that are bad about being trans, the things that we all navigate, and the more we focus on that, even though there's a lot of things that need our focus, the more it weighs on us, the more it affects our mental health. So the more we also take time to hear about the good things that you're experiencing, that other people are experiencing, the better it is for everybody involved. We need to help our community understand there's a lot of good with this path as well. So to that end, please reach out to the show if you have some news you'd like for us to share on your behalf. If you have questions about TransJoy, we want to be able to answer this for you. We're going to come back to this monthly.
Yeah.
So back over to you, to Vanessa, to send us on her way.
I just Rylie, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm hoping to see you on many more episodes. Erica, thank you so much for this starting this up. It's when Erica mentioned it in our Discord, I'm just like, that is such an amazing idea, because we are just hit with a constant onslaught of just hate and just negativity and all this stuff, and to be able to step back and be like, because a lot of it, I know many of us say that even through all the bullshit that we have to go through, if we had the choice of doing it all over again, we would. Because while being trans is awesome, while being trans is hard, it's also fucking awesome. And
it is.
It is. So, yeah, it's these episodes. Everyone send your thanks to Erica for conceptualizing this TransJoy thing, because we need it. It's important, and I'm hoping that we have so many people sending in stories or anything, having people get on for guests, anything that's going on with it. Yeah, we want to hear people's stories. We want to hear people's TransJoy. So if you're interested, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, and you're interested in sharing your joy, let us know. Yeah, we'll have you on. So
this is a collective experience, this podcast. If you have something to say and you're interested, reach out to Vanessa.
Yeah.
There's a big group of us growing. That's why you see different faces all the time.
Mm-hmm. Rylie, do you have any closing thoughts?
Not too much. I just, if you guys have any questions or anything, even especially on the transmasculine side that you guys want to have directed, and I could answer, or even anything like that, just shoot me a message.
Transmasculine elder.
Yes.
But you're young at the same time.
And it's so great to have you, Rylie, because as we know, trans representation airs heavily on the side of the trans women, right? And trans men are there right in there with us, and they're just as important, and they have similar and also different experiences. So I'm so glad that we have you with us.
And we are also hoping to find some wonderful BIPOC people as well. So, is that how you pronounce it? I'm failing at life here. So, yeah. Yeah, I never really. It's something. It's just how I read it in my head. But yeah, we are a very pale group right now. So I would love to see even more diversity amongst our ranks. But well, Erica, thank you so much. Rylie, thank you so much for joining us. This is a wonderful episode. I'm glad I double record all these, because I accidentally forgot to hit record on the Zoom one, but I have it going on OBS. So, oops. I noticed that about 15 minutes into the recording. I'm like, oh shit, and Erica's just talking. I'm like, we'll go with it. So, but
when I used to side fact, my dad's an audio engineer, so I grew up with knowing how to do recordings, and I used to do a bunch of spoken word stuff for people, their workshops and book recordings and things like that. I was so anal about that, because there's just a couple of times where I forgot to hit that button, and it's so bad. So it's good that you have a backup system.
Yeah,
it causes some crazy panic.
Redundancies. That's the entire reason I have this entire redundancy set up, because I am flaky as fuck. Thank you, both of you. Next week, I'm not quite sure what our topic's going to be. From what I understand, we're going to be talking about people with their military experiences, but it's not quite set in stone yet, so perhaps next week will be a mystery. We don't know, but thank you for joining us. Again, if you have questions, reach out to us. You can DM me or anybody, or just email us at transcending.humanity.podcast@gmail.com. It's long, but it's simple. So thank you both for joining. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
See you all soon.